Hey, let's talk sports, dude. What do we have on the docket? NFL Week 12 Sunday has occurred. The Monday night game, as I'm recording this, has not happened, but it's Bears versus the Vikings. Going to be kind of fun to watch. Talk about it a little bit later. But we got a Sunday to go over, and a fun one at that. Let's just kick it off with something that didn't even happen on Sunday. The Carolina Panthers, after a 1-10 start, have fired first-year head coach Frank Reich. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I do think it's that fucking interesting. So let's talk about it. 1-10 with no first-round pick is rock bottom. It's a disaster. That is exactly what that's called. I understand you traded up for number one, which is a move I think they make 10 out of 10 times. Considering in this league you need a blue chip quarterback, and well, you make that trade to number one for a blue chip prospect. They made their choice for Bryce Young. A whole lot coming out that maybe Tepper, the Panthers owner, made that pick, but we don't know whether or not that's true. But it's been a disastrous start. You're 1-10 with no first-round pick. You fire your head coach. The interim head coach fires the quarterback's coach and the quarterback's coach in Josh McCown, and running back / assistant head coach Deuce Staley. Just a disaster. I mean, 1-10 with no first-round pick. Fire the coach. You have a young developing quarterback. I thought they would give Reich the year to maybe see if Bryce Young could develop towards the end of the year, because you're not playing for anything. Like, if you lose, it's not like you're getting a great pick. If you win, all right, cool, we're not getting a worse pick. So, like, you're not playing for anything. You're playing for Bryce Young to develop this guy, even though he has very, very little support in both the offensive line and in the wide receiver room. But it's just, wow. It's a disaster. And we all know David Tepper's track record. If you don't, this is like the third or fourth head coach he's fired. He's fired 2 managers for Charlotte FC, which is the Major League Soccer team that he owns. He has a history of doing this, and I think he needs to exercise patience. But I do understand after a 1-10 start that this is a decision that's made. I guess my takeaway from it, and this is where I'm going to end it at, is when you're at rock bottom, there's a fuck ton of problems. I don't think firing Frank Reich is the solution. I don't think anybody thinks that. I don't think firing Josh McCown, Deuce Staley, I don't think that's the solution. But after 1-10 with no first round pick and a first overall pick quarterback that's shown no real steps, I don't hate the move. I do hate it for Bryce Young. I mean, you're giving the guy a second head coach, third if assuming you don't hire the interim the way they didn't hire Steve Wilkes. You're giving this guy 3 head coaches in 2 years. You're taking away his quarterback's coach. It's like, okay. But I understand the decision. I just think it's a little short-sighted. Yeah, I think the GM's got to be next, too. I mean, it's not like they haven't had top 10 draft pick talent, but that's where I'm going to leave it at. That's a big off-season discussion. This is in-season. They need to focus on Bryce Young's development, because whether you win or lose, it does not really matter. That's where I'm going to leave that at, because the rest of that's very big off-season talk. The rest of these games is for Bryce Young and his development. If David Tepper or the GM, whoever, did not think that Frank Reich and Josh McCown and whoever the offensive coordinator is was not doing that, then, well, hopefully there's a better option, because, my God, it is rock bottom and it is a disaster. Moving forward, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense, for the first time in years and eons, had 400 total yards in the first game without Matt Canada. First and foremost, that's just hilarious. That's just funny. The first game without him. As a Steelers fan, I did not expect it to kind of do it that early, because, yeah, you know, you fire the bad man. You fire, the bad man Matt Canada, which obviously needed to happen. But it's funny it happened the first game back. It's funny Najee had 6 yards a carry. His most this season, he had 5 yards a carry in the game versus Houston, where the Steelers lost by 30. But he had his best day this year. Pickett had his best day this year. They still did not convert in the red zone. I believe they only scored touchdowns in 1 of 4 red zone drives, which that is nothing new for the Steelers, believe me. But it's still not like concerning because you can't expect every light switch to be turned on after one game. I don't think that made sense, but you can't expect everything to be figured out in 1 week. The red zone offense is simply not there. It hasn't been there all season, but also the opportunities has been few and far between. Hopefully that changes, and hopefully, as the Steelers said, it's 7-4, 6th in the AFC playoffs right now. Hopefully that can develop as the season goes on. I mean, they play a ton of backup quarterbacks, which they already did with Jake Browning. The defense is obviously phenomenal. TJ Watt is TJ fucking Watt. My God. But it really is just, it's a fun thing to see the Steelers offense not be so restrictive. I think there's a fair point to be made that as a fan, we don't see Kenny Pickett daily. Matt Canada did. He knows more about him than we do. But I think to a certain point, I mean, okay, obviously it's frustrating to watch as a fan that cares. But I just feel like there had to be that breaking point where Canada would eventually open up the offense this season, and he just never did. And Sullivan and whoever else, I do forget the play caller and offensive coordinator's names, but shout out them. Jaylen Warren, 49 yards on the ground. Najee, 99 yards. Kenny Pickett, 278. Threw the ball to Pat Freiermuth. That hadn't happened all season. I know Freiermuth has been injured, but even when he was playing, that wasn't happening. Thank Christ, Kenny Pickett threw the ball over the middle. Thank Christ, George Pickens got some deep balls. Thank Christ, the offense was opened up. I know the final output was only 16 points, and that's on the red zone. That is on the red zone unit. That's on the red zone scheming. That's on the red zone execution. But the fact the Steelers got to the red zone, that's a big deal, dude. All right, I'm not going to discount that. That's a dub. But the Steelers are in a fun spot because how I was just talking about with the Panthers is that the rest of the season you have nothing to gain from losing. You have nothing to really – I don't want to say nothing to gain from winning. There's definitely a lot to gain from winning. But the whole point of this season for the Panthers is to develop Bryce Young, especially now after you called your shot. You said Reich, McCown, they were not doing it. Whoever the hell is next up, they got to do it. We need to see improvement with this guy. The Steelers are in a similar spot with Kenny Pickett because we're in late year 2 and we still haven't seen shit. You can blame that on Canada. You can say Kenny Pickett's trash. You can say the offensive line sucks, yada, yada. I don't care. We just haven't seen it. But the offense was very restrictive. We are loosening it up. And it's a trial period for Kenny Pickett because if he stinks the bed, if he shits the bed and stinks, then he's not coming back next year as the starter. I mean, maybe he does, but it's going to have backlash to it. I don't think Tomlin cares about that, but it will have backlash to it. But they're in that period too, though, where you got to win football games. You're 7-4. You're in the playoffs. The AFC North is diminished. It's riddled with injuries due to Burrow and Watson being out. And, call it how it is. The Steelers have the tiebreaker over the Ravens right now, considering Pittsburgh beat Baltimore this season. And I don't think they play again until Week 18, so they're going to hold that. They're going to hold that until then if Baltimore falters and the Steelers keep winning. Hey, that'd be very fun to see from a Steelers fan's perspective. But my whole point, if I can remember it, was that the Steelers are in a fun position where we have to develop Pickett. We have to let him take risks. We have to let him learn from those. We have to develop a lot as an offensive unit, and it starts with Kenny Pickett. But we have to be safe. We have to win football games because we're 7-4. We're not like the Panthers that are 1-10. We're not like, I guess, I don't want to say the Buccaneers because, Baker Mayfield's not a young potential franchise quarterback, but we're not a 4-7 team. We're not a 5-5 team. We're 7-4. It's just a really fun, interesting spot because it's going to show how much they trust Kenny Pickett if they fully open up the offense. At least in my opinion, that's what that would show. But, hey, 400 yards of offense. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? The rush game was working. The pass game was working. Pat Freiermuth was used. The ball was thrown over the middle of the field, and T.J. Watt was T.J. Watt. That's a Steelers dub. Chris Boswell kicked like 3-4 field goals. That's a Steelers dub. But nah, yeah, that was very cool to see. 400 yards from the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Red zone offense, though, the red zone unit definitely needs improvement. Let's get to an actual game, though. Let's talk about an actual matchup. The NFC South has a new leader. The Saints coming into the season, they got Derek Carr. They figured out their cap space situation for the 18th straight year, and they just keep putting themselves deeper in cap hell and deeper because next year's the year, dude. The team's talented. Guess what? They're 5-6 and second in the NFC South following the loss to the Atlanta Falcons, who are now 4-2 at home with a 24-15 win over the New Orleans Saints. And oh my God, this is what you pay a guy like Jesse Bates for, the 92-yard pick six. In the Saints, okay, just to set the scene, the Saints were up 3-0 in the red zone in the first quarter. They can go up 10-0. The Falcons offense does not score a ton of points. Obviously, there's 3 quarters left. But you go up 2 possessions on this Falcons offense. It's not looking pretty. It's not looking pretty for Atlanta. Guess what? Derek Carr doesn't see Jesse Bates bolting pick six, 14-point swing, and Atlanta held the lead the rest of the game. They held the lead the rest of the game. And another reason for it is this is why you drafted a guy like Bijan with the 8th overall pick. 16 carries, 91 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown. Desmond Ridder threw a dot, dude. I understand Ridder did not play fantastic. He had those 2 picks, 1 in the red zone to end the half. Simply can't have it. His red zone issues, my lord, they're not pretty. And one, actually, he threw both to Tyrann Mathieu. The other one did not look pretty as well, but I don't think Ridder played bad for Desmond Ridder standards. I'm not trying to dog the guy, but I mean, yeah, he played. Hey, he had a classic Desmond Ridder game, and the Falcons had a classic rushing game. And the reason why they won, though, the Saints had 15 points. That's 5 field goals. They were in scoring position 5 times, and the defense stopped them every single time. The Falcons did that. That was big. That was just massive. That's all I got. That was massive. That is why they won the game. Desmond Ridder made that great throw to Bijan. Jesse Bates, the guy you pay $64 million for, had that massive pick six. Every pick six is massive, but considering the situation, considering the game is for the lead of the NFC South, just massive. Absolutely massive. That's what you pay a guy like that for. That's what you draft a guy like Bijan for, to get 2 touchdowns in a game like this, where now the Falcons, yes, they're below 500, but they're in the playoffs right now. It's electrifying. I love it. I mean, I think Smith knows give the ball to Bijan more. And just something to talk about, too. I fully understand it. I made a whole video about it, and I have Bijan and my fantasy team. I know that's not like, ooh, look at me. But, like, I get it. I fully do. But Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson have been making plays the whole season too, and they did in this game. They had those little stretches, specifically Algier there at the end of the game, where in like that last drive where he was just cooking, 15-yard run. I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but it fucking looked like it. The team as an offense, 228 rushing yards, 5.6 yards a carry, and their longest on the day was only 17. It was every play. They were grinding it out. That was an Atlanta Falcons football win. If Desmond Ridder cleans up the red zone turnovers, though, they get some more points. It gets more. Can't have that. Cannot have that whatsoever. But, man, the New Orleans Saints. I mean, hell, they had 148 yards on the ground themselves. Chris Olave was making plays. And it just did not work out for them. 5-6. After signing Derek Carr, they're in another year of cap hell. The New Orleans Saints are in danger of missing the playoffs, and the Atlanta Falcons could make the playoffs. Nothing makes me happier after making that video saying they were going to break through. Shout out the Falcons, though. That's why you draft Bijan. That's why you get Jesse Bates. Ritter cannot have the red zone turnover. But shout out the defense, though, for stopping the Saints on 5 potential scoring drives. We talked about the NFC South. We did that. I'm going to take a sip real fast. So much speed. So much speed on that sip. We talked about the NFC South. Let's talk about the AFC South because there is a massive matchup. Definitely not game of the week. We will get to that. But going into the week, in my opinion, it was the biggest game. And hell, you could say it was game of the week. We all know what I'm talking about. Jacksonville Jaguars advanced to 8-3 on the season in a 24-21 victory at the Houston Texans. Jags 5-0 on the away. I did not know that until right this second. That's awesome. But wow, what a game. Wow, what a terrific game. Shout out Jimmy. I don't really know what to say about this one. Kicking matters. Kicking matters. That's what I'm going to say about this one. Kicking matters a lot. And CJ Stroud is really good. But guess what? So is Trevor Lawrence. I don't really know what to say about this one. I think Stroud played really well in a pretty big game. I mean, it's what he's been doing this whole season. He threw 26 for 36, 304 yards, two touchdowns, and famously, no interceptions. He also ran the ball damn well too, getting 47 yards on the ground. But Trevor Lawrence played very well too. 23 for 38, 364, 1 tud, 1 pick. That pick was a penalty. I don't care what anybody says. He hooked Evan Ingram's side. That's exactly what happened. That should not have been a pick. But I think this was just the Jags saying, if I had to put some words to it, hey, we're still top dogs. You're not taking over. Because if the Texans win this game, they hold the tiebreaker over the Jags. They're 2-0 against Jacksonville on the season, and they would be 7-4. Jacksonville 7-4. Houston first in the AFC South. We just saw that happen with the Falcons. Guess what? Did not happen with the Texans. Stroud was lights out. T-Law was great. Calvin Ridley, 2 back-to-back great games. That's what they traded. That's what they traded for him to get. This is what they did. 2 games, 3 touchdowns, damn near 200 yards receiving. That's what they did. They got a guy for Trevor Lawrence, and guess what? It's working. I thought I had more talking points with this one. I don't. Houston was given a chance to win down there at the end. And shout out Josh Allen, not the Bills quarterback. We're about to talk about him. But 2.5 sacks. Jacksonville's star edge rusher. 12.5 sacks on the season. Let's not forget about him. I know this is a golden era for pass rushers. I mean, it's a golden era for passers, quarterbacks. And in turn, the pass rushers also. Maybe the numbers are more inflated nowadays because of how much teams are throwing the ball. But TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, and Micah Parsons, I feel, get most of the shine. I forgot about Nick Bosa there. See, boom, it's so easy to forget names. Now, like, those guys get most of the shine, and, you know, rightfully so. There are so many names. You can go down list and lists. Don't forget about Josh Allen. 12.5 sacks on this season. He's been lights out. 2 sacks. Okay, I guess 1.5 sacks on that last Texans drive. 1 on second down to pretty much knock Houston out of field goal range. I love CJ Stroud's pocket presence. The way he moves in that pocket's just so damn fluid. It's so fluid. But on that last drive, I'll put it on the screen. My God, he just bowls through that man and says, "Come here, CJ. Dude, you're mine. This is nothing to me." I get that was a half sack because Trayvon Walker, former number 1 overall pick, came in there too. But you just watch Josh Allen. Paul's on came in there too. But you just watch Josh Allen, you go, my God. That's a mean dude. That's a mean guy. Do not forget about him. But I mean, yeah, Houston played a great game. CJ Stroud played great. I just think Jacksonville's better, and they proved that 24-21. I really thought I had more talking points on that game, and going back to it, kicking matters. Matt Amendola with a chance to tie the game at 24, like a 55 to 60-yarder, massive kick. It was dead accurate. It was going right down the middle, but the crossbar was there too. It doinked the crossbar. It didn't make it. It's a game of inches, and kicking fucking matters. And it mattered big time in the Bills against the Eagles. Real game of the week. 37-34, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Let's talk about it. Starting with both quarterbacks, lights out. Josh Allen, 2 tuds passing, 2 tuds rushing. Jalen Hurts, 2 tuds passing, 2 tuds rushing. I think I saw somewhere that's the first time that's ever happened. Fucking lights out. If you're Buffalo, though, same shit, different day. 6-6 on the season. Give up 17 fourth quarter points. And if you're Philadelphia, same shit, different day. You survive. You're 10-1. Best record in the NFL. You're 10-1. You have the MVP. I don't give a fuck about stats, dude. Jalen Hurts is the MVP. They're 10-1 on this man's back. That rushing touchdown at the end there, that's an MVP moment. In my humble opinion, that is his MVP moment. That was fucking phenomenal. The 2 big dog wide receivers, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, both get touchdowns. Gabe Davis got a touchdown. Should have been 2. When you talk about the Bills, the ball bounces different ways. The ball bounces all the different ways. 50-50s happen. Miscommunications happen. It's a game of inches. And that happened on every level for Buffalo, and it seems to always happen to Buffalo. 6-6. Guess what? There a miscommunication between Josh Allen and Gabe Davis down there in OT on that option route. Down there, that was perfect. He had them killed. Just 50-50. 50-50. They both chose the wrong 50. Crazy. Fucking wild. And what was my other point? Kicking matters? I forget. I lost it. I lost my train of thought. I got too deep into that. But it was probably kicking matters. That was the overarching thing. Kicking matters, dude. Tyler Bass gets 1 kick blocked, misses 1 kick there during the game. And Jake Elliott, what the fuck was that, man? 59 yards in the piss-poor rain. What are we talking about? That was phenomenal. We all know that. And we also all know that the NFL is a game of inches. It's a game of luck. The ball bounces certain ways. But some teams are just better than others too. Like luck, miscommunications, whatever you want to call it. The Philadelphia Eagles do this every single week. They're 10-1. And their 1 loss wasn't because the Jets just played phenomenal. They only lost by 6, and Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 18,000 times. Philly's been doing this. Every game is 1 possession, it feels like. They beat Miami 31-17 and the Rams 23-14 and the Buccaneers 25-11. But every other win they have, 7 wins is 1 possession. And this doesn't feel like the Vikings, where it's just phew, we survived another one. No, Jalen Hurts is killing it. The rush game had 185, 5.8 yards per carry. They have 2 stud wide receivers. The offensive line's phenomenal. The defensive line's phenomenal. They're blocking kicks. They're making 59-yarders. And the Bills, this is just another classic Bills loss. This was just another week. It's terrible to say that, but it's true. They blew it again, and now they said it's 6-6 outside of the playoffs. Lord. And guess who they got? The Chiefs and the Cowboys. Buffalo's playing from behind. Josh Allen was lights out. But that's the difference between elite and good. We saw that 37-34. Phenomenal game, fellas, but nothing new happened. Jalen Hurts' MVP moment happened, though. Give him the damn trophy. Let's transition to the last segment. This has been a sloppy pod, but guess what? We're going to keep rolling. I'm doing something fun this week. I think so, at least. I thought about this when I was at work because of the sentence I just said. That's the difference between elite and good teams. That's the difference between elite and great teams. So I kind of just thought to myself, who are the elite, great, and good teams? Then who are, just the field, just the rest. Then who are the bad? So that's what I did. I did a little, not like a tier list. I don't have a tier list made. I'm going to just go through it because I don't really expect people to listen to this. So the quality can be a little bad. Sorry about it. Let's start off, though, with the elite category. Actually, nah. Let's start at the bottom. We're not starting at the top. These aren't power rankings too. This is not in any particular order. It just happened as I was thinking of it. And I don't have Minnesota and Chicago in here, but I can just insert them on the fly. Let's start at the bottom though. We opened the show with them. Carolina Panthers, that's rock bottom. That's not even bad. They're 1-10 with no first round pick. They have nothing going for them. Bryce Young, I pray they don't fuck that man up. But yeah, that's rock bottom. We already talked about them. The bad. Let's get to the bad. The Patriots, bad. Lost 10-7. They don't know who their quarterback is, and guess what? Both options stink. They're bad. Titans, 4-7. They get a win over Carolina. They beat rock bottom. That's what bad teams do. Guess what? They're still bad. They're 4-7. I don't care. They're bad. Will Levis had that great game. Guess what? They're still bad. Jets. I was going to put them in the field because of their defense, but guess what? They got dogged against Miami. They got dogged against Buffalo. This defense is vulnerable, and Tim Boyle was their starting quarterback. They've lost 3 or 4 straight. They're bad. The Arizona Cardinals, 2-8. I do like this scrappy team, and I like Kyler Murray. I think the rest of this season is dedicated to, hey, let's get Kyler's rust off and prepare for next year, as we have 2 first-round picks, and right now I think they're projected number 2. So, hey, let's shake that rust off, Kyler. Guess what? They're 2-8, 2-9. They're bad. New York Giants, Tommy DeVito, the passing paisan, is going to end out the bad list. I get it. Hey, haven't they won 2 straight? They're a 4-win team. They're not 4-in. They're a 4-win team. Do I have that wrong? Yep, they're 4-8. My goodness, they've won 2 straight. They won 10-7. They're bad. They're bad. Moving up to the field. This is so bad. This podcast is so fucking bad. Jesus Christ. Let's move up to the field, though. These are the teams that probably aren't going to make the playoffs, but they're not bad. They're not trash. And they could upset a team. Starting off with the Green Bay Packers, we just saw it on Thanksgiving. They're 5-6. This season is dedicated to developing Jordan Love and potentially winning some ball games. Jordan Love shows plays. They are able to beat the Lions on Thanksgiving, start so damn hot. They could move up to the good tier in due time. Am I talking too close to this mic? I think so. They could move up a tier for certain. But right now, they're 5-6. They're the field. Commanders, very similar stage as the Packers. They're developing their quarterback, but 1-1 on Thanksgiving and 1 loss 45-10. Commanders are the field. The Bengals. They would be great if they had Burrow. I don't care if they're 6-5. I'd put them in great because just how hot they were getting. It's a bummer they lost Burrow. It really is. That's a very fun team to watch. That's a potentially elite team to watch with Joe Burrow. But guess what? With Jake Browning, they're the field. I think they can win some ball games. Jamar can make some plays. They can upset some teams, but they're the field. Saints, 5-6. They're the field. We talked about them. Falcons, they're in the playoffs, but they're the field. They're not good, great, or elite. Let's stick with the NFC South. Buccaneers. The reason they're not in the bad is not because I made a video about them starting 3-1. It's because although they're 4-7, you do that quick math, they're 1-6 in their last 7. That's bad. That's great grounds for bad. But they don't lose by much. 1, 2, 3, 4 of those 6 losses have come 1 possession. I think they can upset teams for certain, and the next 3 games is against Carolina, Atlanta, and Green Bay. Those are 3 winnable games. I don't think they're bad. If they drop some of those games, yeah, not looking pretty. The Rams, dominant performance over Zona as they're 5-6. Kyron Williams' first game back. My God, I know he dogged the Cardinals in week 3, 4, or 5. I don't remember which one. That was a second half bonanza. But Lord, he dogged him this week. Guess what? You're 5-6. You are still the field. If they break off a few wins, though, hey, they can make the playoffs in an NFC where it's definitely top heavy, but they can potentially sneak in if the Vikings falter. That's kind of the point of this whole field thing, is they can break the mold into the playoffs potentially. And Tampa fits in that. I'm making more excuses for Tampa Bay because they're in the NFC South. They're still only like 1.5 games behind. The Chargers are the field. A 4-7 team with a franchise quarterback they paid $262 million to, and a talented-ass roster. That's the field right there for you. Raiders, also the field. Yeah, they lost to the Chiefs again. What the fuck's new? But, yeah, I mean, Antonio Pierce has the boys buzzing. The Chiefs are just pretty damn good. Are they good, great, or elite, though? Keep on listening. Move on to the good. Seattle. Tough loss against San Francisco. Just a tough loss. They were down pretty big, pretty early. They made it look no, they did not make it look pretty at the end. I was thinking of a different game. Yeah, no, they were down 20-3 at half. They're a 6-5 ball club. They're 4-2 at home. They have the 12th man. Seattle, they're good. Nothing wrong with that. Not contenders though. Steelers, 7-4. They are good. They win football games. The offense is opening up. We already talked about it. The Colts, they're in the playoffs right now. Who would have thought? You take away that game against New England, which I know is a tough thing to do considering they were one awful, terrible, pathetic, limp dick throw by Mac Jones from losing that game in Frankfurt, Germany. Shout out Germany. They got a terrible game to watch. That's maybe for what they did in the past. That's not funny. But, yeah, no, Colts are good. Who else is good? Houston Texans. Putting them in the same category as the Colts, it makes me feel a little gross. But both teams are 6-5, and the Texans, they just dropped a game. They just dropped one that, they potentially could have won. 6-5. They've dropped some games. They're figuring it out. CJ Stroud's awesome, but they're still figuring it out. They're on a 3-game win streak. Drop that one. I need to see more. The Browns. I wanted to put them in the field considering the injury that just happened to DTR. I mean, well, not the injury. It's a concussion. If Joe Flacco plays, they're rock bottom. But the Browns, I mean, their defense is still historic. We need to see Myles Garrett's injury. I didn't look, to be honest, but yeah, no, Browns are good. I don't really need much reasoning. Broncos, they're also in the good. They've won so many games straight, including a win over the Browns. They're 6-5, starting 1-5. Phenomenal work. The Bills, they're in the good. I wanted to put them in the great because of how close they are to being 8-4 or 9-3, whatever. But guess what? It just didn't happen. You can't play off potential. You have to play off reality. They're 6-6. They can definitely compete with great and elite teams. They're just good. Is this a perfect tier list system? No, but it's what I'm doing. Moving up to the great, let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are so fucking good. They are so fucking good. 45-10, and that's just like normal. Yes, I know. They played the Commanders. They played the Giants. They played the Panthers. I get it. But they dominated the fuck out of all those teams. They're fucking great. The Lions, they're great. They're 8-3. Their offense is humming. Aiden Hutchinson is a dog. 4-2 at home. If they get that home field advantage in the playoffs, which they very well might, watch out for the Lions. They're great. The Dolphins are great. Yes, they have not. Them and the Cowboys have not beat a team over 500. Yeah. But the Dolphins win ball games. I'm going to take another sip. Excuse me. The Dolphins win ball games. They score a ton of points. Their defense is good enough. That Jalen Phillips loss, oh my God, can't have it. But it's terrifying knowing that their offense can score 40 and their wide receiver goes for 150 and a touchdown, and that's just like normal. That's terrifying. They're great. They were first in the AFC for like 2 hours. The Pat McAfee show had a great little sketch on that. But yeah, no, they're 8-3. The Jags. The reason why I didn't put the Texans in great is because I think the Jags deserve to be that tier over. Because they're 8-3, they're still the top dogs. The balls bounce their way. AFC South leaders. And in a crowded AFC, they can get that 1 seed. They can get that bye. They're great. This one's a little iffy. I struggled with this one. The last team in the great category, there are only 4 teams remaining, considering we excluded Minnesota and Chicago. The Chiefs are great. The Chiefs are great. 31-17 win. They're 8-3. They're great. I think the part of me that struggles with it is that they could be that elite. They could be, and I don't think there would be any problem with that, considering Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and their defense is lights the fuck out right now, giving up 16.5 points per game. They're lights out. But they're 2-2 in their last 4. If they win against Philly, they're definitely elite. But guess what? They didn't win against Philly. They led 17-7 at halftime, and they blew it, which is the same thing that Buffalo just did. That was a massive game for fanfare, what I'm doing right now. And I get it, at the end of the day, it's only one loss. They're still an 8-3, or I guess at the time, a 7-3 ball team. But that was big. I don't care how you put it. That's big. You want to know why? Because they're not elite. There are 3 teams in that category. Let's start off with the Baltimore fucking Ravens. They are so damn good. They've been doing this every year, too. This is not a new thing for them to start off super hot. I don't have the numbers on it, but they're hot. I have them as the best team in the AFC. They're that damn good. Their defense is lights out. Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson. He's Lamar Jackson. He is phenomenal. And in their last 7 games, they're 6-1, with that one loss being that ugly loss over Cleveland, 33-31, where they were up 31-17 during the fourth quarter. If they're able to close out one game, they're a 10-2 football team. And I mean, you look at their other 2 losses, they lost at Pittsburgh. They should not have lost that game, but as a Steelers fan, A, I'm biased, and B, it's fucking Steelers-Ravens. It's gonna be super intense like that. That doesn't bother me. And they lost in OT to the Colts. I remember there being a lot of questionable no calls or something like that game, where it was like, ooh, the Colts escaped with one. But the Ravens, big win over the Chargers. Zay Flowers, phenomenal, 2 touchdowns. Defense held the Chargers to 10 points, 3 in the first 3 quarters. Baltimore is elite and my top team in the AFC. We all know the teams that are left. The San Francisco 49ers, 31-13 win over Seattle at Seattle on Thanksgiving night. Yes, they dropped 3 straight. But that was 3 weeks ago, and now they've won 3 straight, convincingly. 34-3 over a great team in Jacksonville, 27-14 over a field team in Tampa, and at Seattle they dominated. I understand they dropped 3 straight. That doesn't concern me. That does not concern me. This San Francisco team is phenomenal. Aren't they? They're first in points per game and third in points against, something like that. Something along those lines. They're top 3 in each category, though. They're fucking great. But my top team in the league, I know I said I wasn't doing power rankings. Everything was not power rankings until the last 3. The Philadelphia Eagles are 10-1, and they are, I already talked about it. They survive. I think as of, November 27th at 7:25 p.m., I think they have the MVP of the NFL. They survive. Arguably, they could be 11-0 pretty easily, but they're not. They're just not. But my God, this team just survives. That win, they should not have won that game. Like, it's phenomenal when you mix that sentiment of they should not have won that game with, oh yeah, no, they're a great team. Like, they've been put through the ringer. They played Dallas, bye week, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle. They're 3 games into that, and they're 3-0. Yes, maybe Dallas should have won. Guess what? Game of inches. They didn't. That's why Dallas is in the great and not the elite, because I consider them to be that good. But game of inches. They did not get the inches. Kansas City, comeback win. At Kansas City, at Arrowhead. In the pouring piss fucking rain, they score 37 versus Buffalo in an electrifying game where Josh Allen popped off. But guess what? So did Jalen Hurts. And they got San Francisco next week. That's going to be the game to watch. I don't even care what happens during that game. That's game of the year. Thus far, that's game of the year. I don't care if it's a blowout. That's game of the year. because it's going to show something about one of the teams. And we're creeping up on 40 minutes. If you listen this far, thank you so much. I don't think this was that good. It's going to be a fun December. I know I say it every time I do something like this, but I'm focused on stacking dubs. I think this was a great dub to start out with. A 40-minute podcast. Was it bad? Yes, but damn it, we're trying. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.